Watch on Fred was soon relaxed, and on January 1st, 1995, he asphyxiated himself in his cell. In his cell, they found a suicide note, which read, "To Rose West, Steve, and May. Well, Rose, it's your birthday on November 29th, 1994. And you will be 41, and still beautiful, and still lovely, and I love you. We will always be in love. The most wonderful thing in my life was when I met you. Our love is special to us. So, love, keep your promises to me. You know what they are. Where we put together forever and ever is up to you. We loved Heather, both of us. I would love Charmaine to be with Heather and Rena. You will always be Mrs. West all over the world. This is important to me and to you. I haven't got you a present, but all I have is my life. I will give it to you, my darling. When you are ready, come to me. I will be waiting for you." After Fred's death, Rose was charged with the murder of Charmaine. At the pre-trial proceedings in February, she pleaded not guilty to 10 charges of murder. She had been charged with 2 counts of rape and indecent assault of young girls, but they were dropped with a view for later resubmission. Her trial began on October 3rd, 1995. The prosecution argued that the Wests were sex-obsessed, sadistic murderers. Describing the bodies found held secrets more terrible than words can express. The victims' last moments on Earth were as objects of the depravity of this woman and her husband. They would continue to point out that Fred was incarcerated when Charmaine West was killed, claimed that the Wests had learned from their mistake in letting Caroline Owens live, and that the gag found on Therese had a feminine touch, a scarf tied in a bow. The prosecution promised the court that they would demonstrate Rose's controlling and sexually sadistic character, as well as expose her efforts to deflect suspicion. Prosecution witnesses included lodgers at Cromwell Street, victims' relatives, Rose's mother and sister, and surviving victims including Anna Marie West, Catherine Holliday, Caroline Owens, and Miss A. Neighbors of the West family would describe Charmaine's disappearance while Fred was in prison, as well as her indifference to Heather's sudden disappearance. The defense tried to discredit the witnesses as either having financially exploited their connection to the case or being motivated by grudges. One such instance was that Caroline Owens received 20,000 euros for her story, which that really shouldn't matter with all of the trauma that girl went through. If she was willing to talk about it, then hey, get paid for it and go on vacation. The defense would go on to highlight the fact that Fred committed at least one murder before meeting Rose, and it was very similar to the ones Rose was being tried for. They furthered that the prosecution's case was mostly circumstantial. Furthermore, they claimed Rose was unaware of the extent of Fred's sadism and urged the jury not to be prejudiced by her promiscuity and domineering manner. Even though the defense was highly against Rose testifying, she still did it. On the stand, her manner was described as quite unusual. Sometimes she would appear morose and tearful, while at other times she was upbeat and humorous. She sobbed when describing herself as a victim of child abuse and married a violent and domineering man. She would further claim she had never met 6 of the victims who were buried in her home, and could remember very little of her assault on Caroline Owens. When she was shown photographs of the victims who were buried in the cellar, she was asked by the prosecution if she recognized any of their faces. Rose's face turned bright red, and she began stuttering. She was asked about her life at Cromwell Street. Rose would state that she and Fred lived separate lives, a statement which was inconsistent with everyone who had either visited their home or lodged in the house. She would admit that she had a strained relationship with her daughter Heather and would tell the court that her daughter was a lesbian who psychologically and physically abused her siblings. Even though she claimed these actions against her daughter, she maintained that she loved her daughter and did not know that she was murdered. Rose would further explain that the reason her and her husband's explanation for Heather's disappearance changing a lot was due to phone conversations she had had with her daughter after she had left home. Her defense would then call on a number of women who claimed they had been attacked or assaulted by a man whose physical description matched that of Fred West between the years 1966 and 1975. These women testified that when Fred West's photo appeared in the media in 1994, they all recognized him as their attacker. This was an attempt to show the jury that Fred was more than capable of abducting, assaulting, and/or attempting to attack women without Rose present. The final witness to testify at Rose's trial was Janet Leach. The prosecution called on her to testify against the tape recordings played for the court on November 3rd, which depicted Fred confessing he alone murdered all the victims. Janet Leach had testified that through her role in the investigation and questioning, Fred started to view her as a confidant and would ultimately confide some pretty heavy secrets to her which contradicted his confession that Rose had no knowledge of the murders. The evening before his arrest, he and Rose made a deal where he would take full responsibility for all the murders, some of which Fred claimed were Rose's mistakes. He also told Janet that his wife was the one who killed Charmaine while he was in prison. Fred would also admit that she was the one who murdered Shirley Robinson and participated in dismembering her and her baby. In regards to the remaining 8 murders, she testified that Fred told her Rose had played a major part in the murders. After 7 weeks of evidence, the judge told the jury that circumstantial evidence can be sufficient for a finding of guilt, and that if 2 people take part in a murder, the law considers them equally guilty, regardless of which of them actually performed the killing. On November 21st and 22nd, the jury returned with a unanimous guilty verdict for all 10 murders, referring to her crimes as appalling and depraved. She was sentenced to life in prison and made it clear that she should never be paroled. Rosemary West would begin her sentence at HM Prison Bronzefield as a Category A prisoner. Then she would be transferred to HM Prison Low Newton, and in 2019, she would be transferred to HM Prison New Hall, where she will continue to serve out her sentence and protest her innocence. Fred and Rose West are known to have committed at least 12 murders between 1967 and 1987, but many speculate that there are other victims that haven't been found. Authorities have recorded over 108 hours of taped interviews with Fred, of which he confessed to having acted alone and portraying Rose as the more culpable participant. It was noted that on several occasions, Fred had made cryptic hints that he had murdered several other girls, but he refused to elaborate any further besides that he had murdered 15-year-old Mary Bastholm in 1968 and buried her body near Bishop's Cleeve. He would further claim that there were bodies buried in Birmingham, Scotland, and Herefordshire. He told his confidant Janet Leach that there were up to 20 further victims that he and his wife had killed, but they were not in one place, but spread around. Fred would also tell Janet that he intended to reveal the location of one body per year to investigators, which obviously didn't happen. While Fred was being held, he also made quite a few admissions to his son, Stephen, when it came to the fate of the victims who were buried at Cromwell Street. He claimed he had extensively tortured the victims before their murder, but did not rape them. Instead, he would engage in necrophilia with their bodies at or shortly after their death. He would also claim that many of the fingers were missing because the victims' fingers and toes had been one of the forms of torture the victims had to endure. Other torture methods he put his victims through included extracting their nails, acts of mutilation, and cigarettes being put out on their bodies. After Fred committed suicide, he was cremated in Coventry on March 29, 1995. In a funeral that was attended by only 4 of his children, a 5-minute service where no hymns were sung, the Reverend quoted sections of Psalm 23 and added a solemn reminder to those in attendance that they must also remember everyone else who suffered because of these tragic events. It is believed that his ashes were scattered at Barry Island. After their parents' arrest in 1994, the 4 youngest West children who were born between 1978 and 1983 were given new identities to protect them from notoriety of their family. Each child remained in foster care. The house located at 25 Cromwell Street was demolished in October 1996. Every remnant of the house was destroyed to discourage souvenir hunters. The spot where the House of Horrors once stood was later developed into a public pathway. Anna Marie attempted suicide 2 weeks after delivering her testimony against her stepmother in 1995. She would try again in 1999. Luckily, her attempts were unsuccessful and she is still alive today. And I hope she is leading a better life. Stephen West was also known to have made a suicide attempt in 2002. In 2004, he was sent to jail for 9 months for having sex with a 14-year-old girl on multiple occasions. He has since stopped that behavior and was last reported as having a partner and a child. Fred West's younger brother, John, hung himself in the garage at his home in November 1996. He was awaiting the jury verdict in his trial for the alleged multiple rapes of his niece, Anna Marie, and another underage girl at Cromwell Street in the 1970s. Rose's oldest biological children and stepdaughter, Anna Marie, would visit her in prison regularly. By 2006, she cut off all contact with them after May began questioning her culpability in the murders. To justify her decision, she stated, "I was never a parent then and could never be now." The only person known to continue visiting Rose in prison today is Anna Marie. In 2004, Barry, one of the West's youngest children, claimed to have witnessed the murder of Heather. He was 7 at the time of the incident, but claimed Fred and Rose restrained her, then sexually and physically abused her, before Rose repeatedly stomped on her head until she no longer moved. In October 2020, at the age of 40, it is believed that Barry died from a drug overdose. He had been struggling with drug addiction and psychiatric problems from the things he witnessed and endured as a child. I seriously hope that all of the children who grew up in that household have recovered and can lead a normal life. This case was so bad, and I am just left speechless on the entire matter because it ruined so many people's lives. Just so many people's lives have been ruined. So, what did you think of today's case? Do you think Rose is innocent? Or do you think she actually helped in some of the murders? Do you think her husband started pointing the finger at her because he was scorned? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening and your support. Stay safe, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye.